What's up, YouTube? It's Justin with Sillage Scents. I've got another video for you today of 10 fragrances, and this time these are niche fragrances either from designer houses or at designer prices. Just to address the elephant in the room, you know, there's kind of two ways to look at niche. There are niche houses that only do one thing. They only do perfumery. But then there are niche fragrances that are made for a certain select niche of people, a group that would like these, where they're really made for this select group and not everyone else. And so the majority of these are the second category. They are niche fragrances. They're not going to appeal to everyone, but if you like them, you will probably absolutely love them because they are so well done, and every one of them is priced pretty amazingly. So as we get going, let me know, what would you add to this list in niche perfumery at cheap prices? And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. A very small portion of those who watch these videos are subbed. And so for those of you who are just checking in, go ahead and click subscribe. I think I've got content that you'll enjoy if you keep coming back. All right, let's go ahead and begin. The first one I'll mention, this is one that years ago, back a while ago, several people did videos on, but no one really talks about it anymore. And I think it's because of the niche quality of this one. I'm talking about Perry Ellis M. Now, this one is a Perry Ellis fragrance, so it's not that the quality is necessarily niche level, but the type of fragrance it is, what this fragrance does, it does to extremes. There's an extreme spiciness and there's an extreme sweetness. And so you're going to get on the top, you're going to get some star anise. It also has bergamot, which I don't really pick up much of. But then you get a strong cinnamon note. You get a strong balsam fir in this fragrance. So you get some other kind of piney, herbaceous notes. Then you get some spiciness from cinnamon and star anise. And then as you go into the dry down, you've got vanilla, you've got tonka bean, you've got patchouli. So you've got a sweetness and a little bit of a darkness that mixes with a very powerful spiciness and even a little bit of that sort of piney kind of feel with the balsam fir. It's very unique. It's not, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this were to come out from some niche house. And this is one you can pick up for about $15 online, Perry Ellis M. If you like super sweet, super spicy fragrances, it's definitely worth picking up and taking a risk on. Next up, we'll go with one that's been called 100 times niche perfumery at designer prices. This is ENCRE Noir. This is the All Extreme, or in other words, the extreme flanker of ENCRE Noir. And this one is a little bit sweetened from the original. It's got a little bit of vanilla. It's got a very dark patchouli. It's a very dark fragrance. It's also got a vetiver that's done in a very sort of dark, earthy way. It kind of reminds me of like, you know, a little bit of slightly patchouli sweetness and maybe a little bit of that vanilla mixed with like a damp dirt or something like that. It reminds me of like walking through an old castle or even hiking through the woods whenever the trail is maybe a little bit damp. It reminds me of something like camping or exploring an old castle. I've said before that this is what Simon Belmont of Castlevania fame would wear as he's going into a castle to destroy some evil beast. This is a very unique one. It's pretty situational for me, but this is one of those that has surprised me because my wife is pretty standard in the stuff that she likes, mostly mass pleasing, but she actually likes the smell of this one. So it may surprise you if you pick up this one. You know, the one that I would recommend out of the ENCRE Noir line. The Sport is definitely more appropriate for warmer weather. This one's probably more appropriate for colder weather. All right, next up, we're going to go with one. I got this little tiny bottle of, a little 15 ml, but this is all that I'm going to need because this fragrance is so strong. I'm talking about Moschino Toy Boy. And so this one is a rose fragrance for men. And it's rose done in a very sort of dark, somewhat heaviness It's got a slight bit of like a plasticky kind of feel. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it just gives you this sense of like a waxy rose or something like that. And then it's got some spice. It's got some cardamom in here and some other spices. And so you're going to get a powerful dark rose with a little bit of spiciness, and 3 sprays of this at the end of a 10 or 12 hour day, whenever I'm washing off in the shower, I may still smell it after I get out of the shower. I've let my son wear this once, and he sprayed 2 or 3 sprays on, and the next morning he still smelled like Toy Boy. So this is definitely niche in that it's a straight up rose fragrance for men, and it's very powerful. But you can get it at a great price. I think this little 15 ml, I probably paid $15 for, something like that, $20 for. But a full bottle, I think you can get for $40, $45 for 100 ml. All right, next up, we're going to go with one. This has become one of my favorite spring fragrances. I love this fragrance, and out of everything I have, I don't have anything else that smells quite like it. It's been somewhat compared to a Ventus. It's been, I even heard someone talk about the opening of the fragrance reminding them of the Most Wanted Parfum, and I see what people are talking about with all those comparisons, but it's not really like any of them. I'm talking about just the original DUNHILL Icon. It's got this neroli note in the top that will remind you of like a fizzy kind of grape soda. I've heard a number of people say that, and I totally understand what they're talking about. But to me, it's almost like a fizzy raspberry soda or something like that. And then it's got some darkness that comes through from the base. There's some woods in the base. There is some leather. And it comes through that bright fruity opening, and it just makes this just delicious kind of, not quite gourmand, but something that will remind you of like a drink that you would want to drink in the spring. But then that darkness, that weight from the base comes up and just makes it something very unique. And I've been promoting this fragrance a lot. I know it's nothing new, but it's new to me. And the fact that I got this for $35, if I would have bought this from MANCERA for $120 or something, I wouldn't bat an eye. This is one I highly recommend you check out if you haven't yet. It is a beauty, and it's absolutely perfect for spring. All right, next up, I'm going to mention one that a lot of companies are doing now, and they were inspired by the Eccentric Molecule brand, which takes a single note and just puts that out as a fragrance, takes the note, mixes it with perfumer's alcohol. This is ISOE Super. This is an extrait from Oak City Beard Company, and I think I got this for like $27 on Amazon. And ISOE Super is a very kind of airy, maybe ozonic would be the right word, but an airy, slightly sweet, somewhat woody fragrance. It's definitely synthetic smelling. It is literally an aroma chemical, but by itself, it's a very kind of mysterious fragrance. Or you can spray it on top of a fragrance that doesn't perform that well. And that ISOE Super, which is used in fragrances to kind of carry and cause projection and sillage, you can spray it on top of a fragrance and increase the performance of anything that, is even remotely in a similar, sweet or woody kind of fragrance category. All right, the next one I'll mention, this is definitely the most expensive fragrance in the video, but I'm mentioning it because this is a niche brand that absolutely has fragrances at designer prices or even lower in some senses. So this is MANCERA. Many of their fragrances you can get for less than $100. This is a 60 ml that I think I got for about $70. This is AOUD Lemon Mint. And this is an awesome fragrance, another one that's perfect for spring, although I'm going to keep wearing it into summer, and it even worked in the winter, and I think it'll work in fall. Pretty much an all year round fragrance, although I haven't had it for a year yet. But what you're going to get with this one is a sweet almond lemon scent. And so think sweet almond mixing with a sweet lemon. Ash from Ginseng says it reminds him of like Lemonhead's candy. It is a sweet lemon like that. But then there's an oud that kind of grounds the fragrance, kind of pulls it down back to earth a little bit, grounds it a little bit. There's something in it that may remind you of powderiness, although I don't know that that's quite the right word, but it is a great fragrance for spring. I think it's going to work for summer as well. It is sweet, but it's not so overpoweringly sweet that it would be cloying. I think as long as you keep your sprays under control. That's a great one, but MANCERA is a house I would recommend for anyone getting into niche. I only have a handful of niche fragrances, and MANCERA is one that's very accessible for someone who doesn't want to spend hundreds of dollars per bottle. All right, next up we'll go with one that's sort of an ultra hype beast cheapie that's always referred to as niche perfumery at cheap prices. This is Bentley for Men Intense, and this is again a little 15 ml bottle, a little travel spray, yeah, 15 ml, and this is all I need because this thing is super, super powerful, and what you get with this one is booziness, leather, and incense, and you get all of those facets just very plainly. You get a whiskey note, you get a very strong leather note, maybe even slightly animalic leather note, and then you get an incense. And right from the beginning when you spray it on, to me this is a pretty linear fragrance. You get the majority of the experience in the opening, and it lasts for 10 hours on my skin. Very strong fragrance. It does have some sweetness. There's some vanilla in here. There is a little bit of sweetness, but it's not an overly sweet fragrance. It's moderately sweet, but just powerful incense and leather and booziness. That's what you're going to get. And you can get 100 ml for about 35 bucks the last time I checked. And I think I got this 15 ml on Fragrance Buy for like $12 or $15. And that's really all I need. All right, next, let's go with one that has been another hype beast, and it is inspired by, if not a straight up clone of a niche fragrance, or at least kind of the private line of a designer house. This is Moustache Eau de Parfum, and this is an incredible, incredible fragrance. It's made by ROCHAS. They make a lot of really great fragrances at great prices, and this one, what you're going to get is a vanilla tobacco spicy scent, but it's not the most mass-pleasing fragrance. The tobacco is a little metallic. It's a little green, really, and there is something some people will call harsh or metallic in this fragrance, and it is pretty much a clone of YSL Tuxedo, although Tuxedo is not quite as metallic or not quite as green, whatever that fragrant, that facet is. There might even be a little more sweetness and a little more spiciness to YSL Tuxedo. But this one is beautiful, and every time I wear it, I think, man, I need to wear this more. I love the way that this smells, everything about it, that greenness, that sweetness, the vanilla, the spiciness, very awesome fragrance. It's not unique anymore because everybody's doing a clone of Tuxedo, but it's definitely one that fits in this video perfectly. Next up, we're going to go with a straight up clone of a niche fragrance, and this is a super cheap clone of Roja's Elysium. And so this is Imperium by Fragrance World. I've got 3 or 4 clones of Elysium, and the way that they handle vetiver is the main thing that distinguishes them. Some will have more vetiver, some will have less, some will have more sweetness, some will have less. This one across the board is pretty much in line with the way that Elysium handles both vetiver and the sweetness of that beautiful, powerful, blackcurrant, fruity blast that you get in the opening of this fragrance. One of the best openings in fragrance, I think, is Elysium, and this one has the opening down, and it's got the vetiver at the right amount. I think the jury's still out on performance. Some people are saying performance is terrible. On me, it's about a 6 or 7 hour fragrance, but the vetiver is what holds on for the majority of the fragrance. If you like a grassy vetiver and you like beautiful, sweet, bright fruitiness, this is one that's worth checking out. I've seen it as low as $22. There's a lot of hype on it right now, and the prices are jacked up. Give it a few months, and I think it's going to be back down in the sub $30 price range. All right, I believe this is the last one in the video. This is my favorite leather fragrance. I've talked about it a lot on the channel. This is this gorgeous packaging here, PHILLIP PLEIN, No Limits, the credit card with a shiny skull. But this one is a very spicy leather fragrance, a slightly animalic leather fragrance. I love leather fragrances, and I even like some that are more animalic or harsh. But this one has some sweetness and some spiciness. It's got a kind of dusty chocolate, kind of a dark chocolate, slightly dusty, sweet, gourmand chocolatiness, but it's also got some cinnamon, it's got some cardamom, so a real spiciness, and then it's got that leather that is just absolutely killer. This one is my favorite leather fragrance. It is absolutely something that if it came out from a niche house, nobody would bat an eye. It would totally fit in that category. It's one that is probably not for everyone, but if you like leather, spicy fragrances, you've got to check it out. And the price on this is very, very reasonable. All right, so that's been 10 fragrances that are at designer prices or lower, some of them way, way lower, and all of them fit into a niche of appealing to some, but not necessarily being loved by everybody. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you join us, and let me know in the comments, what would you add to the list? Thanks. I'm Justin. This has been Sillage Scents.